So we're explaining worksheet 5.3 WSP. We're going to begin with this first one. We're solving this inequality, and the way to solve an inequality is to solve it exactly the way you would an equation. The only difference is that on your last step, if you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip or change that inequality symbol. So where's the variable at? It's on the left side of that inequality. I want to get this t by itself. I don't want this minus 5. I don't want the divided by 6. I don't even want this minus sign. So what do I start getting rid of? I want to start with the minus 5. I want to get rid of that by doing the opposite, which is a plus 5. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side, plus 5. So my new inequality will be a negative t over 6 is greater than or equal to negative 4. Now notice that I did take this negative side and I put it up here on the t. You could do that if you want, or you could just leave it out in the front. I put it up here with the t so I could just easily get rid of this divided by 6 by doing the opposite of dividing by 6, which is multiplying by 6. And what you do to one side, you must do to the other side. So that eliminates. I will have a negative t left over is greater than or equal to negative 24. And now I'm finally at my last step. So this is really a negative 1 in front of the t. So I could divide by negative 1 and divide by negative 1. That'll get me my final answer. Or I could also multiply each side by negative 1. So I could put times negative 1 right here and times negative 1. Either way is fine. I'll show both. You could either put times negative 1 or you could put divided by negative 1. Okay? Actually, I shouldn't put both. I'm just going to put 1. But you get what I'm saying. So the rule says that if you multiply or divide by a negative on your last step, you do flip the inequality symbol. So you will have a positive t. You have to flip that inequality symbol. It becomes a less than or equal to and a positive 24. There's your answer. Just for funsies, let's graph this. You're going to have 24 right in the middle and a bigger number on the right side, a smaller number. How did that happen? A smaller number on the left side. And it's going to be a solid dot because there's a solid line underneath the inequality. That means it could be 24 itself. So notice that's not an open dot, it's a solid dot. And this is a less than symbol, and less than is to the left, right? 23 is less than 4, so less than is to the left. Not only that, I mean, even if you look at the inequality itself, it's pointing, the point is on the left-hand side. So that tells you that's going to the left. And that's only true when you have the variable on the left side, okay? Anyway, let's move on to the next one. Number 4, right here we have variables on both sides. So you don't want variables on both sides. You only want it on one side, right? The goal is to get u by itself on one side. So we have u's on both sides. Let's get rid of one of them. I don't know, what do you guys want to do? Do you guys want to get rid of the 6u or get rid of the 4u? 6, okay, so let's get rid of that 6u. By subtracting the entire thing, 6u. That'll disappear. What you do to one side, do to the other side, subtract 6u over here. And obviously, you're going to subtract the u's from u's, not from the 6. You can only do like terms. So anyways, 4u, that's funny, 4u. This is for you. No, 4u, take away 6u, that is a negative 2u. And you bring down the minus 6, bring down the greater than or equal to, bring down the minus 20. And from there, we want to get u by itself. So we're going to get rid of the minus 6 by doing the opposite, plus 6. Now we do to one side, do to the other side, plus 6. You're going to have negative 2u is greater than or equal to negative 14. And that's really a negative 2 times u. So to get rid of the multiplication of negative 2 in front of the u, you're going to do the opposite of multiplying, which is dividing. So you're going to divide by negative 2, and when you do to one side, do to the other side. That'll cancel out. You finally have your answer, u. And because we divided by negative 2 on our last step, because we divide by negative, we have to flip the inequality symbol. And of course, negative 14 divided by negative 2 is positive 7. There's our answer with that inequality symbol flipped. If you were graphing it, you put a 7 right here, an 8 right here, a 6 over here. Again, this is a solid line underneath the inequality, so it will be a solid dot. What do I mean by that? I need to fill it in completely. And it does look like this inequality itself, it has a point on the left side that's telling us that it's going to the left, right? After all, this does say u is less than or equal to 7. Less than, 6 is less than 7. Less than is to the left, always. Greater than is to the right. I hope this makes sense. Now, these have been simplified equations, and I believe the first several inequalities, sorry, not equations, they've all been simplified. There is no distributive property or combining like terms, not till later. So let's continue working on these simplified inequalities. Number 5, we want a by itself on the right side of the inequality. So I need to get rid of that minus 1 by doing plus 1. And that cancels out. What I do to one side, I must do to the other. What I have now is a 14 is greater than 2/3 with an a. Now, I want to get a by itself, and I have a fraction in front of it. Now, there's actually a way where you could get rid of the entire fraction. You would have to divide by 2/3, because this really does say 2/3 times a. Okay, so you could divide by 2/3, and when you divide by a fraction, you really multiply by its reciprocal. Okay, now this might confuse you. I'll do it 2 different ways. How about this? I'm going to write it 2 times and show it 2 different ways. And you get to pick whichever way you feel best. Okay, so the first way would be to divide by 2/3, and when you divide by a fraction, you really multiply by its reciprocal. So if I multiply this side by 3/2, and I multiply this side by 3/2, because what I do to one side, I do to the other, what happens is that the 2 on top cancels with the 2 on the bottom, and the 3 on top cancels with the 3 on the bottom, and you end up with an a, and the less than symbol, and over here put the 14/1, and you could multiply, and then reduce, or you could reduce first. 14 divided by 2, that's 7, and you'll have a 3 times 7 left over, and that will be 21. So here's our answer, but it's better to write the a on the left side, 21 on the right side. And of course, if this was a correct answer, which it is, and it's opening up to the 21, it has to continue opening up to the 21. So there's your final answer. A is less than 21. Now, if you're thinking like, what the heck? He multiplied by the reciprocal and this is crazy. Okay, then maybe this is not the method for you. Here's an alternative way of looking at it. Just like we've always said, if you have a fraction and you want to get rid of it, you can multiply everything by the denominator of the fraction that you want to get rid of. So if you simply multiply by 3, that will cancel out the 2/3. Because after all, what is 2/3? It's really 2 divided by 3. So if you don't want this divided by 3, you could get rid of the divided by 3 by doing the opposite, multiplying by 3. And of course, what you do to one side, you do to the other side. So on the left side, we have 3 times 14, that's 42. Greater than, and of course the 3 and the 3 eliminate, and we have 2a left over. And then for our final step, we would get rid of the multiplication of 2 in front of a, divide by 2, we will end up with 21 is greater than a, and of course flip the whole thing, and it'll become a is less than 21. Same answer, just done slightly differently. I don't know. I think that this way is easier to understand instead of multiplying by the reciprocal. It's technically faster over here, but if you understand this better, then go ahead and do it this way. Number 6, what should I do first? It's exactly correct. We need to multiply by 2 to get rid of this divided by 2. Now think about it. Wouldn't it be nice if this problem just said w plus 3 is less than negative 8? Yeah, all you do is subtract 3 and subtract 3. So the thing is, we need to get rid of this divided by 2. And the way to get rid of something is do the opposite. So you're going to multiply by 2. And when you do to one side, you do to the other side, multiply by 2. The 2's cancel out. You will have a w plus 3 left over is less than negative 16. And then there's just one more step, subtract 3, subtract 3. You will end up with w is less than negative 19. Notice that I did not flip the inequality symbol. Why? Because I didn't multiply or divide by a negative. Yeah, I subtracted 3 or I added a negative 3, right, to both sides, but I did not multiply or divide by a negative. So anyway, there's our answer. If you wanted to graph it, just put negative 19 right in the middle. You need a greater number to the right, but remember, you have to get to 0 before actually get into the positive numbers. So that means that this next number would be a negative 18. And going further to the left, you get further negative. That'd be a negative 20. And this does say W is less than negative 19. So it's going to be an open dot because there's no solid line underneath it. Open dot. And it looks like the point is on the left side. So it is going to the left. Again, this says W is less than negative 19. Anything to the left side is less. Anything to the right side is greater. Moving on. Oh, still missed 7. So on number 7, what do? Multiply by 5. So multiply by 5 and multiply by 5. Now you don't actually multiply. Why? Because when you have 5 divided by 5, that cancels it out. That was the whole purpose of getting rid of this divided by 5 by multiplying by 5. So that eliminates. Wait a minute. Sorry. Let's just put a line through it like that. Okay, so what do I really have? I have 3f minus 10 is greater than 35. Now it's just a two-step inequality. Get rid of the minus 10 by adding 10. What you do to one side, you do to the other side. You're going to end up with 3f is greater than 45, which is really saying 3 times f is greater than 45. To get rid of the multiplication of 3 in front of f, I divide by 3. And what I do to one side, I do to the other side. I will now have f. I do not flip the symbol because I didn't divide by a negative or multiply by a negative. F is greater than 15. On a number line, you have 15, 16, 14. This is going to be an open dot because there's no solid line underneath it. And it's pointing to the right side, right? The point of this inequality is on the right side. That's why it's a greater than symbol. It's going to be going to the right. Man, I say right so much instead of right. Sometimes I say it like when I'm driving, my wife's driving, I'm like, hey, turn right. She's like, what did you say? Forget it. Okay. I need to get rid of that fraction to start getting h by itself. So you don't want this divided by 5. So you're going to do the opposite of dividing by 5, which is multiplying by 5. That eliminates. Of course, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So you have to multiply that beautiful h by 5, and it becomes 5h. Is less than or equal to 6h plus 3, no more fraction. So now, I want to solve this thing. I want to get h by itself on one side, but what's the problem? Where's the h at? On the left side or the right side? It's on both. And you don't want it on both, right? You got to get rid of one of them. So which one should I get rid of? The 6h or the 5h? 6h is good. I want to get rid of the 6h by subtracting 6h. What I do to one side, I do to the other. That's going to leave me with a negative 1h. I want to keep that inequality symbol because I'm not even on our last step yet. Now I'm on my last step. I need to get rid of this negative 1 that's being multiplied by h. Well, right there, I want to get rid of that multiplication of negative 1 by dividing by negative 1. Dividing by negative 1. And again, this is our last step. And on your last step, if you multiply or divide by a negative, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So yes, it'll be an h, but you have to flip that symbol to become greater than or equal to. And 3 divided by negative 1 is negative 3. And there's your answer. On a number line, negative 3, negative 2, negative 4. This will be a solid dot at negative 3 because it has a solid line underneath it. So solid dot at negative 3. Greater than is to the right. So I'm going to end this video right here. Why? Because all these questions that we've done, they're all simplified inequalities. I'm going to start the next video with number 9 because this is the first inequality that actually requires simplification. What is simplification? It's distributive property and or combining like terms. So on number 9, you will have to distribute and then combine the numbers with numbers and letters with letters. So obviously, this is a huge inequality, and we're going to simplify it, make it smaller before actually solving it. So we'll pick this up on the next video.